Welcome, apprentices. This is Agent 1 currently speaking. Today, the anomalous subject we are going to talk about, as well as the first on the channel, will be a very particular, complex and dangerous one. Having said that, let's begin.
Children, have you ever met the bogeyman before? No, of course you haven't, for you're much too good, I'm sure.
Have you ever felt observed while you were sleeping? Maybe from something that didn't seem to be human. This is precisely what happened to a boy of about 10 years old near. He was peaceful asleep in his room, when at a certain point he began to hear a deep, whispering voice, which tried to induce him to look at the window. He woke slowly and went to the window of his room, but looking through it he saw nothing and went back to sleep. He could have never imagined he would be one of the few survivors of one of the most dangerous subjects known to 𝐕eil. Object classified as FM-12. Class: chaotic. FM-12, nicknamed That Isn't the Moon, is a large humanoid entity with an estimated height of 23 meters, whose morphology vaguely recalls the figure of the anthropomorphized full moon. The entity emits its own light from an ovoid and hairless face, of yellowish color. The temperature of the facial surface is estimated to be around 5,300 degrees Kelvin or 5,000 degrees Celsius, consistent with the damage observed on the victims and with the illumination released, which does not appear to reflect an external source. The entity's face is lethal to direct vision. An subject observing it is immediately blinded and undergoes a rapid degeneration of the facial tissues, eyes, skin, muscles, appendages. The tissues take on a sticky and gelatinous consistency. One documented case involves a male of approximately 23 years of age, found in an alley with his face completely disfigured, unrecognizable and covered in his own blood. During FM-12's manifestations, witnesses report the constant presence of deep, prolonged roars, strong reverberating, audible even at great distances and in the absence of visible source. These sounds, similar to those emitted by enormous predator creatures, alternate with slow, heavy thumps that punctuate the entity's movements, suggesting an imposing mass and gait. Neither the roars nor the footsteps are detectable by audio recording devices, but are clearly perceived by the victims. The mere manifestation of FM-12 activates a psychic hypnotic phenomenon. The victim perceives a deep, distorted, whispering voice in their mind, which gradually and seemingly inevitably induces them to direct their gaze toward the entity's face. This effect is known as the visual psychic induction phase. The language used in the whispers coincides with the affected subject's native or primer language. It is still unknown whether the creature actually has vocal cords and is the actual source of these voices. In cases of manifestation during states of sleep or dormancy, the induction phase is instantaneous. Awake subjects, however, report an increasing sense of being watched, anxiety, fear, and an inability to enter a state of dormancy and sleep, all of this before the inevitable induction phase. However, in the absence of direct visual contact, these effects are not lethal. Victims who successfully avoid the induction often have no memory of the entity's attempt, or have fragmented and distorted memories of the event. After prolonged contact with FM-12, victims develop a state of progressive fatigue and physical debilitation, particularly noticeable in the event of an escape attempt. This effect manifests as loss of muscle strength, motor slowing, and occasional syncope. Those who are more sensitive to these effects may pass out before any direct interaction with the entity occurs. In many of these cases, FM-12 abandons the victim, who awakens hours later with post-traumatic psychological symptoms and recurrent visual hallucinations. Not all manifestations end with the victim's elimination. In a limited number of documented cases, FM-12 has merely observed and followed selected individuals for days, causing them to have persistent nightmares, paranoia, and cognitive disintegration. On rare occasions, the entity has terminated the interaction without inflicting an apparent physical harm. In most circumstances, FM-12 physically terminates the victim. In other cases, however, it transforms the individual into a zombie-form entity classified FM-12A. These exhibit motor and neurological deterioration, slow movements, and primitive aggression. Studies on FM-12 instances have shown that they have a lifespan of approximately 15 days from transformation and brain death. Once an FM-12 instance is terminated, it generates an anomalous object classified FM-12B within a few seconds. FM-12B is a rigid mask in the shape of crescent moon, similar to Venetian carnival masks, with holes for the eyes and a vertical slit for the mouth. It is made of identical materials to those of traditional masks, but is indestructible and immune to any type of chemical analysis, cutting, burning or corrosion. Recent studies have shown that FM-12B instances dematerialize within about 20 seconds, approximately 2 months after their appearance following the termination of an FM-12 instance, and it is therefore important to have a constant supply of them in each silent prevention department facility for the proper execution of a lunar silence protocol. See multiple lunar event paragraph. An attempt to visual document FM-12, whether by the agency or civilians, has resulted in the immediate and irreversible meltdown of a device employed, including video cameras, mobile devices, drones, and any type of device with an optical lens. The entire structure of a device, not just the camera, is melted or deformed beyond recognition. No images of the entity have ever been recovered. FM-12 manifests in 2 known modes, each in which FM-12 appears to be visible and audible only to victims. Single manifestations. Internal code. Moon-S event. These occur on a small scale, affecting a single individual. The entity manifests in the immediate vicinity of a target, with localized phenomena such as a dark red sky visible only to the victim, mild temperature changes, sensations of fear, induction of vision, and subsequent termination or conversion of a victim into FM-12A. In the event of manifestation during a period of wakefulness, it is recommended to close doors and windows and close any curtains that these windows may have. Collective manifestations. Internal code. Moon-M event. Documented at irregular intervals of 33-98 years. They occur in small towns, villages or isolated urban areas. In these events, the entity manifests simultaneously for all inhabitants of the area. In this case, the activation of a lunar silence protocol will follow, in which each resident receives a ritual black robe and an example of FM-12B lunar mask. An intercom controlled by the agency, hidden behind a fictitious civilian agency, the Silent Prevention Department, will then communicate the instructions. 1. Put on FM-12B and the robe. 2. Arrange citizens along the edges of the streets, facing the sender. 3. Remain still, silent, and avoid any reaction, even if FM-12 or FM-12 instances are screamed at or appear. 4. Do not assist anyone, even if recognized. 5. Maintain an upright posture and ritual composure for approximately 12 hours. The entity is referred to by intercom as the monster to avoid direct connections to FM-12. Covert agency facilities operate in over 190 global urban areas, disguised as civilian public safety agencies, with the previous code name. These facilities are authorized to activate the lunar silence protocol if they detect pre-manifestation signals. In approximately 28% of cases, even when protocol is strictly followed, some terminations or conversions still occur. Studies suggest that the effectiveness of the precautions lies in ritual homogeneity and general calm, but the NDDS anomaly surpasses any operational guarantees. Collective pre-manifestation clues include the presence of large human footprints detected near forested areas adjacent to affected urban centers. Silent Prevention Department tactical teams are deployed in hundreds of global forests to pre-identify these footprints and activate the protocol early. Once FM-12 dematerializes, usually after 12 hours, victims must 1. Remove ritual masks and cloaks. 2. Turn such items over to the agency collection teams. 3. Return to their homes. Attempts to perform controlled tests on FM-12 are considered unapplicable. The entity does not respond to stimuli, calls, rituals, light signals, or biological samples. Its appearance is entirely independent of human action, intention, or experimentation. Various EVRA agents have conducted further studies that have led to the creation of the following 8 notes. Listen careful. Note FM-12 number 1. Recent archaeological discoveries indicate that FM-12 has been present on Earth for thousands of years. The discovery in 20 at Mesopotamian site in the region of Iraq of clay tablet dating back to 2400 BC strengthens the hypothesis of an archaic cult dedicated to the entity. The tablet clearly shows stylized human figures, probably members of an ancient tribe, arranged around the creature with raised arms and open palms, in a devotional attitude towards a central figure with features compatible with FM-12. Elongated body, rounded head, and anthropomorphized face. A partial translation of an inscription on the back of the tablet reads, "He who watches in the red light, the face that burns away sin." The object is currently held in the agency's secure archaeological facility, classified as potential relic FM-12 Hista. Note FM-12 number 2. In the small rural town of on //20, an M-moon event occurred, resulting in confirmed deaths and the transformation of civilians into FM-12A. Only partial implementation of a silent protocol was possible due to the rapidity of the event. The resulting collection of masks confirmed the presence of FM-12Bs in numbers corresponding to the terminated FM-12As. Note FM-12 number 3. It has been observed that during mass demonstrations, a significant portion of victims ignore the instructions provided by the Silent Prevention Department intercom, believing them to be a form of unjustified alarm or a charade. However, recent M-moon events have shown that FM-12 possesses the ability, by instinct, or through an unknown power, to accurately identify subjects who are inside any place or dwelling, who do not participate in the prescribed ritual. In such cases, the entity limits itself to observing the gathered crowd for a few minutes, and then slowly extends its upper limbs towards the specific places or dwellings, with deliberate and unnatural silent movements. The victims are instantly terminated by direct visual exposure to the entity's face. In almost all cases, such individuals do not transform into FM-12 instances. Note: greater emphasis is recommended during pre-manifestation vocal communications. Rational fear is preferable to disbelief. From Agent. Note FM-12 number 4. It has been noted that when a victim is transformed into an FM-12 instance during a mass demonstration, the victim does not display the aggressive behavior characteristic of such instances. Instead, the instance slowly sinks to its knees, maintaining a motionless, passive posture until FM-12 completely disappears. This behavior is currently being studied, and may suggest a form of ritual respect, or inertia induced in the direct presence of a main entity. No violent interactions with civilians have been observed during such states. Note FM-12 number 5. Despite numerous analytical attempts and extensive observations, it is still unclear whether FM-12 acts according to rational patterns, or purely instinctive, as in the case of animal predators. The difficulties lie mainly, but not only, in the inability to conduct effective tests regarding FM-12. However, some behaviors, such as the specific selection of non-ritualized victims, or the silent respect during the passive phases of some FM-12 instances, suggest a form of wisdom, or at least conscious intentionality. The question remains open. Note FM-12 number 6. During the occasions in which FM-12 instances are captured before death, estimated at 15 days from conversion, it has been observed that they communicate very rarely. When they do speak, they tend to utter fixed phrases, including, "Isn't the moon beautiful today?" usually coinciding with the night hours. The phrase inscribed on the FM-12 Hista tablet, He who watches in the red light, the face that burns sin. Such phrases are always uttered in the original native language of the instance. This linguistic coincidence has led to speculation that there may be a cognitive or ancestral connection between the FM-12 instances and the human figures depicted on the tablet. Despite the suggestiveness of the hypothesis, there is a lack of sufficient empirical evidence to confirm a direct historical relationship. Note FM-12 number 7. Near on //20. A luminous event occurred in the rural municipality of. The only direct witness was a girl of about 8 years old, identified as. According to the statements made by the mother, the minor, in the hours preceding the event, reported hearing someone walking on the roof and a voice calling her from the window. During the entire duration of the event, the child never directly observed FM-12's face, despite the evident influence of a so-called induction phase. The minor stated that she perceived a presence beyond the window, which stared at her and spoke to her in a deep whisper, repeatedly inviting her to look outside. After a few minutes, she spontaneously lay down, falling asleep without signs of panic or disorientation. Following the event, the minor periodically reported to her mother that she still felt that presence, despite FM-12 no longer appearing. Prolonged exposure seemed to have left residual effects, although limited. This case has strengthened the hypothesis according to which FM-12, during single events, tends to prefer subjects of infantile age, who however seem less vulnerable to the cognitive and physical weakening typical of the entity and to the inability to sleep. Greater attention is recommended to closing windows and curtains in the children's rooms during or before such events. From Agent. Note FM-12 number 8. On //20. A blackish, decaying, and partially damaged paper fragment was found inside an abandoned structure near. The material is fibrous and old, with a composition not fully identifiable, but free of anomalous elements detectable by the agency's standard instruments. The note reads as follows. Does the moon look larger to you at the horizon? This glowing, low-hanging globe, passing through the trees on your night drive home. It looks bigger and closer than it does when it's high up above us, doesn't it? And this large, full moon seems to have a strange effect on us. Makes us do strange things. But the moon is not larger at the horizon. It doesn't get larger. It doesn't get closer. In fact, it's getting further away. The moon is moving away from us at rate of about 1.6 inches a year. That's 3 times as fast as your fingernails grow. And after you're dead, your nails will keep growing, and the moon will keep getting further and further away. So why does the moon on the horizon look so close? Why has this phenomenon been observed for centuries, across cultures worldwide? Maybe it's just an illusion. Sometimes. But why does it make us feel this way? Why does it make us act this way? Why does it seem to be following us? How is it getting closer? Well, that isn't the moon. The author of the note and the date of writing remain unknown. However, textual analysis and implicit content suggest a clear correlation with FM-12. Particularly in reference to its behavior during the initial phases of collective and individual demonstrations. The document is currently preserved in the secure archaeological facility with the classification Potential Relic FM-12 Hist B. And that is it. I hope that what was talked about was understandable and to your liking, and I hope you will never have an encounter with FM-12 ever. Until next time, apprentices.